The next one we're going to talk about is composition, which is the art of arranging elements within your frame. Concepts like the rule of thirds, leading lines, symmetry, and framing can greatly enhance the visual impact of your photos. As the name goes, composition, composure. This is whereby now you set a certain standard for your picture, whereby now you choose how the picture will look like. Maybe you're taking a picture, you ensure that the subject will always be at the center of the frame using the rule of thirds. It is very important that you use the rule of thirds, because the rule of thirds will help you position your picture based on how you want the picture to look like. Remember, there are different types of shots. We will get to talk about that in just a few. So the rule of thirds makes sure that you are able to achieve these set shots, and you are able to also make sure that you do take a professional picture. As always, let the picture be at the center, and the rule of thirds will guide you in making sure that the picture is at the center of the frame. Now let's take a look at file formats when it comes to the camera itself. Now, cameras typically offer two main file formats. One of them is JPEG and RAW, and the other one is JPEG files that are compressed and ready for immediate use, while RAW files contain unprocessed data, offering more flexibility during post-processing. Now, in terms of files, it's all about how you're going to store your image. You can either store RAW plus JPEG, whereby, remember, JPEG is the compressed version of the RAW file. But the advantage of using the RAW file is because you can be able to manipulate the picture in editing or in post-processing. So most photographers prefer to do JPEG plus RAW. For instance, maybe a client wants a quick photo. You may be able to give them a JPEG file as you want to work on your RAW file, simply because the RAW file helps you to do more of the changes in the photo. Maybe you want to do away with the shadows, then you have to take your picture in RAW format, because it will be easy to manipulate the picture from saturation to exposure to also shadows, and ensuring that the picture pops out. So remember, you either use RAW plus JPEG based on the outcome you want from the picture itself, or you use JPEG if you want to share the images instantly. Now let's talk about now the types of depth of field when you're taking a picture. Now, one of them is the shallow depth of field. The shallow depth of field is characterized by a small portion of the image in sharp focus while the background and foreground are blurred. It is achieved by using a large aperture, and the small f number is 1.8, but as Ali said, if you get the prime lens can give you up to 1.4 to create a narrow plane of focus. Commonly used in portrait photography to isolate the subject from distractions or to create a pleasing background blur. That is, now the shallow depth of field is mainly used, we can say that when people are taking portraits outside, because you want the main focus, you can say that the subject to be in focus, but the background to be blurry. So that is what is called a shallow depth of field, whereby you can only be able to see the subject and not the background. So that one is called a shallow depth of field. And for you to achieve such a kind of setting, you need to have either the prime lens, or your lens can be able to do a large aperture of 1.8. It is commonly used, as I've said, in portrait photography. And now we also have the second one, is the deep depth of field, which means that a large portion of the image is in focus from the foreground to the background, achieved by using a small aperture that is of f16 or f22 to increase the depth of focus. It is often used in landscape photography to keep everything from the foreground to distant objects sharp and clear. Let's say that you're going to take a picture of people in a park and you want to showcase where they are. Now, this is the depth of field that you'll be looking for, that will be able to just make sure that every single area in the picture is focused and sharp. Now let's talk about different types of shots. Now when you get into taking pictures, you have to understand that we have different type of shots that as a photographer you should be able to take. One of them is the long shot. The long shot is basically the subject. It's shown at a relatively small scale from far away and emphasizes setting. You can say that you want to showcase a certain building. You'll move far away from that building and take the foreground of the building and the building itself. And that is what is called a long shot. You can be able to take maybe a subject, be able to take from, let's say, a person. From the leg, you just do some 1 or 2 meters, we can say, from where that person is. Then you take a picture of it. Then we have a wide shot. The subject takes a full frame or most of it. We look at a whole subject within the setting. We look at the whole subject within the setting itself. And we have a medium shot that is closer. It shows a part of the subject in detail. The photographer wants us to look closer. We can say from the hip, medium shot is from the hip moving upwards. So the photographer wants to show you the details of the picture itself. And then we have a close-up. That is from the necktie or from the shoulders to up. It takes up the whole frame. It details emotion. And when you want to take an emotional picture, now this is the setting you use. That is a close-up from the necktie over here or from the shoulders to up. Then we have the extreme close-up from the chin to the forehead. That is where you get to take that kind of shot. Those are just the types of shots you can be able to take as a photographer: the long shot, the wide shot, mid shot, and close-up. Then we have a histogram. A histogram is a graphical representation of the tonal distribution in your photo. It helps you evaluate exposure and adjustments accordingly. Each camera has an histogram that showcases that how the blacks are looking in terms of the exposure of the camera, the shadows, the midtones, the highlights, and the whites, and what you should be able to do when you're going to take the next picture. Now, the next thing we should also talk about in terms of photography is tripods and stabilization. And using a tripod or other stabilization techniques is essential for capturing sharp images, especially in low light conditions or when using a slow shutter speed. Remember, we talked about the slow shutter speed. And tripod will be very, very essential when you're using a slow shutter speed.